Afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm going to try to attempt to share this in my personal. You know what? I think it's already going. So we're good. It's your host, Chris
Good.
Holmes, as always, man. And today I have my returning guest. Go ahead and tell your name by name of.
Matt Gagnon.
Awesome, awesome. So we have a lot of things going on since the last time that we talked. I mean, it's like super crazy out here, but all positive vibes.
Right on, man. Life is blessed. Like it's good. Uh, After going through the Texas snowpocalypse, man, we're alive and well here. So
Yeah,
I'm feeling really blessed.
that's the main thing. So I'm going to
hmm
dive right into the story at hand that I'm pretty sure is going to be inspirational and big sign of hope for a lot of people. How you dealt with COVID, and then not only that, you're able to overcome.
Man, COVID. You know, I've respected that whole issue from the beginning, from day one. I never messed with it. A lot of people have their opinions on it. I don't want this to be a political thing, and I don't want it to be I'm not asking for any sympathy in this story either. What I want to share is some lessons that I learned from it that I believe are universal and can serve other people. So that's very, very important for me. But from day one, though, I wore my mask, I washed my hands, I stayed away from crowds, I did the social distancing piece because, who am I to say I know better? you know, like who am I to say, masks don't work and I read this and somebody's friend told me this and, you
And
know,
not to mention you're in great shape too. So I was like, okay,
Yeah, well, yeah, I was, I stay healthy, you know. Uh, Look, I do have pre-existing conditions, so there, like, I get that out of the way. So anybody who doubts this, like, or whatever, like, yeah, I had stuff in the past, but bottom line is, I was just finishing, in full transparency, I was finishing a cross-country trip with my family. Like we traveled the entire western U.S. basically. Drove to
gotcha.
Colorado, up to Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California, Nevada, like you name it, man. Finishing in Arizona, but we were staying away from people. We were driving to national parks. Just my son, my wife, and our dog. We packed up our
Can't forget
Jeep.
about the dog.
Yeah, man. And it's
Mhm.
just we were tired of being held hostage, and we did things right. We did things the best we could, masks, all of that stuff. And by the time I hit Arizona, I got my first fever. Um,
Ooh.
and that was in Flagstaff, just before the Grand Canyon.
Mhm.
And I'm really grateful. Actually, we picked a hotel that was actually further away than we thought. It was like 45 minutes away from
Oh,
the
I could
canyon,
just imagine that. It's like,
which,
like when you're not feeling like up to speed, it's like
yeah.
anything that feels like 10 minutes is like forever.
Well, the thing is I wasn't sick yet. Like we
Okay.
just picked this hotel, and it was a real blessing actually, because turns out we were only like 5 minutes from a hospital. That
Okay.
worked out later on, and so you know, uh, I'm not feeling so well, and so I chill out and relax there, and then finally we go to the hospital. They tested me like twice. I had like 103-degree temp. Like I was roasting. It just hit me out of nowhere. Just like I'm
So it's
packed,
like you're perfectly fine, then bam, you're like,
yeah,
okay, what
perfectly
is wrong
fine.
with me?
I'm just like winding down for the night, going to get in bed. I was feeling really excited about the next day, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, like,
It's like something
is it
ain't right.
hot in here? And then I get in bed and I'm like, I'm freezing too. And like, I can't stop moving my legs and my body and like uncomfortable. And finally, like, it was like, man, I think I need to get checked out. And so go to the hospital. They did one of those rapid tests. They
Hmm.
shoved the thing in my nose and
Oh,
wiped it
yeah, I
around.
saw the
And
illustrations of that. I was like, oh
you
man,
know,
this
and
is
that was just the rapid one. They do both, and it triggered one of my seizures that I have from cataplexy. So whatever. Like I had that came back negative. Then they did the 3-day swab one that goes all the way into your brain practically, um, and they kept me there for quite a while. It's a lonely experience because no one can come visit you. No one
It's
can
just
come in
you.
with you. It's just you in a dark room waiting for the fever to break. They're not treating it like COVID, but at that time because it was negative. But I did learn that those rapid tests were only 70% accurate. That was terrifying to me. I was like, that's a
See,
30% margin of error. I was like, whoa. You
See, that's the
know,
one thing I was concerned of too. I was like, how accurate are these
yeah,
results?
a little scary. But
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, all right, I'll treat it like I have it. So, I finally get home after like 8 hours there. I'm also dealing with a slipped disc in my neck, like two of them. I noticed there was something. My whole left arm had been in like level 10 pain, for most of the trip. And so I'm working through that. But, we get back in the Jeep. We travel a little further. The goal is to, like, I'm feeling better. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
felt much better. 48 hours later, like, we're
Oh,
now in
round
Sedona,
two.
Arizona. I'm feeling good. We're in a beautiful place. I'm staying away from people, though. Like, I'm just kind of quarantining myself. I love Sedona. This is the place I wanted to end the trip. Back to the hospital again. Fever came back. Not feeling good. Back to the hospital. Left alone, sweating, crazy, lonely, like there, because you're just left alone. And
Okay, so I got to go ahead and give great value for people. So, like in these moments, because a lot of people may not want to say out loud, like they kind of fear of being alone. So, what was going through your mind to help you keep going through all of this?
oh man, great question. Um, it was just getting back to my family. You know,
That was your
that
wife.
was it. Like I just want to get back to my little boy, my wife. That's it. And wanted some answers. Too. But yeah, just staying alive. I gotta be honest. I had some fear. Like
Okay,
my fear was is that they wouldn't let me leave. Like I'd
that
go into the
right there would have made me
hospital.
nervous. Like, why can't I
Yeah,
leave the room? Like, what's up?
yeah. They won't let me leave. That was my fear. And or being put on a ventilator. Stuff like that. You hear these stories. So, but I'll fast forward though because like, look, bottom line is I stayed in 3 hospitals just to get back. Like trying to get back, hit 3 hospitals: Flagstaff, Sedona, and then Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Whew.
My back was hurting and my neck was hurting so bad. We stopped at the White Sands Desert in Alamogordo, and it's cool out. Like when the sun starts to go down, the desert is cold. And so I
Yeah,
laid
it's a
down on the
dramatic
sand like it
change.
was a giant ice pack, man. And that was so bad we went to that hospital. So, at this point though, I tested positive once on a rapid test.
Okay,
So I got 3 tests, 2 rapid, 1 regular. Now I've tested 1 out of 3. I'm like, I did test positive for pneumonia though. And I was like, I've had pneumonia before. I get this. There's a small spot on my lung. And I was like, this definitely feels like pneumonia. So I was more convinced that I had that than anything else, but still taking it seriously. We traveled like 4 to 6 hours a day trying to get back to Austin. And bottom line is like, I ran out of antibiotics by what, December. I got sick on December 10th. By December 20th, that was it. Like
so
my
you
wife's like, you
basically
got you got
using
to go back to the hospital,
you're using
and I
everything you could just to kind
yeah,
of make
excuse me,
bless.
but that was it. My wife's like, you gotta go to the hospital, man. We go to urgent care first, and they're like, nah, you're going straight to the hospital. Like oxygen levels were plummeting. I was getting worse. The pneumonia exploded into both lungs, just consuming everything. And you could hear the crackling sound coming out of my lungs, like when I talked or breathed. It just like sounded like Rice Krispies, man. So um, my wife took me to the hospital, and it's still emotional for me. Uh, I got out, and this time I knew that I was probably not coming out for a while. Like, this was bad. This was my 4th hospital, 2 urgent cares, and waving goodbye again to my boy. He's 7, and I knew they couldn't come in with me. They had to park, and they let me out. And I knew I wasn't going to be released for a while. I just knew it. And I went in there, told them. They immediately pulled me into a room and got me in a bed. They don't mess around with it. Um, it's literally like they throw a pillowcase over your head and drag you into a van and drive away once you say COVID, so they get you out of there. So anyone who thinks like, hey, the waiting rooms are empty, there's nothing going on. It's like, no, they don't want your COVID breathing self sitting around in the lobby. They put you in fast, and there are no cars in the parking lot because you can't have visitors. So it's empty. But when you get in there, it's packed. Like there almost wasn't a
Packed.
room for me. Like they said like, hey, the hospital that's across from your house, like that you're only a mile from, packed. In this city of 1 million people, you're going to have to travel like 45 minutes to an hour north just to get a bed.
I can just imagine how that felt, and you were already feeling
Packed.
terrible.
Oh my gosh. As the time I was leaving that urgent care, they said a bed just opened up. It's saved for you. Get over there. So I got there and I go in, and immediately they're telling me, look, your oxygen levels are plummeting, man. Like the machine here, the oxygen machine here only goes up to 10 liters per minute, and you need more. And they can't do that where I was. Doc came in. He's like, look, brother, if you were my family, I'd put you in our critical care ward. I'd get you on some plasma transfer that's got antibodies in it. That works. It might not work, but there's no side effects really, so let's do that. And then 5-day treatment of remdesivir. That's had a successful rate, but he goes, you tested for COVID again. So now I've tested positive twice. I'm like, this is it. I got it. No more questioning on that. But the nurse was concerned. She looked right at me. I was like, I really don't want a ventilator. And she goes, we're going to talk about that soon when the doctor comes in. I was like, whoa. So it was serious, man. And I was starting to feel really faint, and just things felt like it was fading. But you get up there, and they hook me up to all these alarms and stuff. I'm in this gigantic room. But the first thing I noticed when I got in there, like I'm barely holding it together, just like conscious and stuff, because my breathing, man, it felt like I had cinder blocks on my lungs. Just,
So you were fighting for every breath, literally.
man, yeah, it was brutal. In those moments, man, they were scared. Like I could see it, they've been through this. But even in those moments, I was asking the nurses, how you holding up? Like I was worried about them. Like they've been working around the clock. So I thanked them, even though I was really sick. And I was just like, how you holding up right now? Like, what's it been like for you? Man, one nurse was just like just opened up, And so I still felt for people, even though I was like hanging in there. But the first thing I noticed in that giant room is 2 huge windows side by side, floor to ceiling. And I can see, I'm on the 7th floor. I can see over, it's facing east. I can see right over the neighborhood and a little bit of the Austin area. And I was like, man, that's all I need. Like, I love being able to see nature or just the
Outside.
outside world. I was like, man, those windows immediately are a blessing. So that was the first shot. And then they believed me about my neck, the pain I was going through, that I wasn't some pill junkie. I was like, I hate pills. I don't want to take painkillers, but like, I can't even focus right now because this thing, my arm and my neck is killing me. So they put me on morphine. And that knocked myself out, but they hooked me up to a big thing of oxygen, man, just pumping that through me, immediately put me on plasma. But the most important thing that I want to get to people, let's get away from all that stuff, was even though I was hanging on for like those first 2 days, like really like scary it felt like for me, was one, even though it was scary, I never doubted. I was always like, I'm going to make this thing. I will beat this. I've beat worse stuff in the past. I beat the last pandemic with swine flu. I had that. I'm like, all right, I'm just collecting pandemics. Let's do this. I'll fight it again. I've fought all kinds of weird stuff and I've won. But the purpose is like I knew, and I'm not preaching to people. I've got faith in my life, and my faith told me, God told me like, hey, I've always helped you through this. We'll get you through it. It's not going to feel good, but you're going to use this message to help serve other people. So let's do this. And I'm like, all right, I'm all in. But that next morning, man, after day 1, I woke up, saw that sunrise right from the east. I was like, man, what a privilege it is to see that sunrise. Like what a gift. So gorgeous.
It makes you
And there,
appreciate life.
man, well, yeah, I run morning routines already. I run a whole morning program for people, and I'm up every day anyways at 4:30, so they're waking me up every 2 hours anyways to check my vitals, then draw blood. I got 2 IVs in me, and but then that sun came up immediately. I said, all right, the power of routines has saved me in the past. Let's do it again. And I said, my first routine will be is waking up to see that sunrise. And I don't care what I do, like after, if I fall asleep or stay up, doesn't matter. Watching that sunrise is my first thing. That's it. I have control over that. And so I did that. And by day 2, I did that again. And then halfway through day 2, it's all of a sudden like I'm getting a little more stable now.
Feeling
Like
better.
the scariest part was kind of over. Um, I'm still in a ton of pain. Actually, it was the morning of day two, though, was when I started feeling really faint. And I felt kind of like that morning of day two was pretty bad. I felt like my spirit was fading. Like it was a really weird feeling. And it was scary, too. I was like, man, this can't be it. And so, like, I'm trying to, like, holler to the nurse, through the glass and the curtain they had around me. And they couldn't hear me because I couldn't speak up very loud. I'm hitting the call button, and all of a sudden that thing's malfunctioned. I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
And finally they came in. I was like, look, I'm in so much pain right now. Like, I'm begging you, please give me an MRI, like for my neck. Something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong. I had this fear that it was pressing against my spinal cord. And like, I could just tell, like, man, if this thing presses more, like, I fear like something bad's going to happen. So finally, finally, like after like pushing, the nurses saying they can't do it, the doctor's got to do it. Finally, the doctor came, they approved it, and they said, "Look, man, we're gonna get you that MRI. We're gonna take care of you." Like once the doctor came in, I didn't have to advocate anymore. But they said, you're gonna be the last person to go though, because you have COVID, we have to do a massive cleaning of the MRI machine when you're done. So we'll get it done, but you'll be the last to go. And by 2 a.m., baby, I got that thing done. And I was pumped. 2 a.m., they put me in that machine for like almost an hour. And that's a long time in there, but I didn't care. Um, but the point is, I want to make is like, you got to be your own advocate, not just in the hospital, but in life. Like, nobody's going to do anything for you unless you ask for what you need. And if it's really important to you, you got to fight for it sometimes. And you got to trust yourself. And in those moments, like, look, I trust my doctors, but I trust my own knowledge of my body too. My intuition. My intuition's never wrong. So if I fought for that MRI and there was nothing on it, I would be fine with that too. I didn't care. But I fought for it. And that next morning, man, he came in. He was like, man, you got two slip discs in your neck. One's pressing up against your spinal cord. I was like, I knew it. Like, that's not news I wanted to hear, but it was nice to know I was right,
Yeah,
And then they
a
said,
gut
we're going to
feeling.
hook you up with the right stuff and to help me recover. And I finally had a pain-free day after like 2 months. Um, but going back to that, point one is, like the privilege of a sunrise and creating your first routine, the tiniest thing possible. The second thing is being your own advocate in life. Like, remembering how many times in life, have you not asked for what you needed, and you just make assumptions, and then you're upset and resentful because you're not getting your needs met, you know, you play a martyr. Like, no, you just don't know what's possible till you ask for what you need. And so that's a really important thing. You
Kind
can't
of
make
reminds me.
assumptions about how other people are feeling. Like, oh, I don't want to ask because I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to upset the person. You know, you can't assume how people are gonna feel.
Very strong point. Kind of also reminds me, closed mouth don't get fed. And then like you were very strong the whole way, even though it's. I guarantee. Well, you are going to say this anyway. Like this has definitely made you stronger. It's always those
Oh yeah,
times where you have gone to the most challenging moments, or like your back is against the wall, or
yeah,
that great analogy in darkness. That's when something that's going to growth into something big.
it's huge, man. And I'll tell you, like the other big thing too was uh, one of the nurses came in. He's like an occupational therapist, and he said, "Oh man, you got a recliner in here." I said, "Yeah, but my oxygen hose is too short. I can't even get out of the bed, more than a foot. And plus, my body felt like it was hit by a truck, so I didn't want to move anyways. But they put an extension, tube on there. They weren't supposed to because it's a high flow tube. It's not supposed to, but they gave me a little slack. And he said, "You want to sit in that chair?" I said, "All right." And before I knew it, I was in a chair. And I made a commitment then too. He put me right by the window. I said, "Put me by the window as close as you can." And I said, "All right, from now on, I'm not uh I'm not going to be in my bed unless I'm asleep." I said, "I'm going to be in this chair. I'm going to sit by that window. I'm going to watch what's going on in the world. I'm going to watch that sun come up." I had my wife was able to drop things off in the ER lobby and have it brought up to me, but she couldn't come up. So she'd drop off, like, I had my backpack, I had my laptop, I had a book, um, just little stuff.
You
And
were doing
so,
like everything possible to keep yourself going. And
yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and put this. I think you were posting too. I was like, wow,
yeah,
this
I
in the
posted
middle.
by, it took me a little while, but like, it was, it was weird posting stuff, but I felt inspired again to start writing, but again, I could control something that aligned with my values. I love nature, so seeing that sunrise was huge. But also doing something normal like sitting in a chair, not lying in a bed like a victim. And look, sometimes you can't get out of bed, and I totally understand that, but I knew I could get in that chair, and if I was physically able to do it, I was going to. And so, yeah, man, that was a huge thing. So I had my laptop, and then I made this commitment. I'm not going to watch any more than 15 minutes of the news. I don't need all that stuff poisoning me, but I just want a little bit of knowledge what's going on out there. Um, and then I really didn't watch TV at all. The next thing I did was my value about music. I had a little speaker with me. I put some tunes on, started listening to music. Man, that started evoking like some of my creativity, some energy. I'm feeling better, in that moment. Even though I'm still really sick, because I can't, if I stand up, my oxygen levels plummet to a dangerous level. Like the alarms go off and stuff, and they come in. And so I'm like, all right, I told the nurses, like, I'm a pretty independent person, but I'm not going to be so independent that it makes you guys nervous, that I'm not creating a more of a hassle for them. So we had a good system down. So that's the other point, is like that fourth point is like, do things that align with your values. So if you value nature, find a way to connect with that, even if it's just looking out a window. If you value music, man, play some music for yourself. It feeds your soul. It feeds that soul for you. So, again, it's just like, one, find a tiny routine, the small thing to lean into, like a sunrise. And then again, being your own advocate, asking for what you need, getting out of bed and sitting by, a window, stuff like that, like aligning with your values, those types of things. You know, it's so, so important. And then I remember after that, it was simple stuff like, I told my wife, I was like, can you drop off some more clothes? And I started taking off the hospital clothes and I started putting on a shirt every day, just a t-shirt. And then, my regular shorts, and then I even asked for my shoes. She's like, you're not walking anywhere. I was like, I know, but it feels good
It's all
just to
those
have them
mental
on.
things.
Yeah. And so I started dressing every day. They got all the wires underneath. I'm not healthy enough to take a shower. They won't let me take one, but I can go in and freshen up. The funny part was they put me in there with this portable tank, and I was in there freshening up, and all of a sudden, like I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm getting anxious, and then I'm having a hard time breathing. I ran out of oxygen. The tube ran out. They made a mistake, and I came out. The nurse was like, oh my gosh.
Wait, they made a
Yeah.
mistake?
They made a mistake. Yeah, God bless her. It's okay. I don't blame her. She was like, oh my word. I'm like, but I realized, man, I was like, holy cow. I'm really respecting this illness now. Like I'm respecting the hell out of it. Because I'll tell you what, it does whatever it wants to. It has no it's only it's just it does whatever it wants. It's not predictable. It just does whatever it feels like, and it does weird stuff we still don't even know about. And I'm experiencing it firsthand for anyone who doubts that. It does what it wants. If it wants to give you a fever, if it wants you to feel like hurt, if it wants to take the air out of your lungs, it'll do it. It even takes your taste and smell away. People ask me if that happened. I don't recall anything about smell, but I do remember like food just tasted different for a moment there. Like I bit into some food and I was like, that didn't taste the way I thought it would. Like weird, but it came back pretty quickly. But like now, honoring my values are the other thing. The other big thing though, even at the end of the day too, was um, food. Like my wife had sent me like you could order food from like Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats. That was a funny part. You could have food delivered. They drop it off in the
At least
lobby
you had a
and they
little bit
bring
of
it up to
normal.
you. Yeah. So my wife sent me some food from this place that, does things with donuts and all that. I like sweets, and I had that. It was delicious. I was grateful. But then I was like, I had some leftovers and I told the nurses like, you gotta toss it. I was like, I can't, no more. No more junk food. I was like, I need to stay lean, proteins, good fats. I was like, that's all I want right now. And so that's the other thing. I stuck to a discipline with nutrition. You can't complain about being sick in life if you're feeding yourself garbage. You can't. You have no right to.
That sounds like a quote.
It is, man. I'm telling you, you have no right. And I've lived that before in my past. I remembered it from when I had other stuff, just living. You can't complain about your situation in life if you're not sleeping, if you're eating garbage, if you're not doing anything to feed yourself physically, any kind of fitness, or if you're surrounding yourself with toxic people. You just can't. You can't complain. You have no right. If you do, you're just a victim. So again, those things you can control. So that's a big point. Think about the things you can control: your sleep, your nutrition, your fitness, your stillness and prayer time, and the people you surround yourself with. There's 5 things. So nutrition was big, and I found that out, too. And then I started reaching out to people I really care about, and they were calling and they were texting. I had one guy, my brother, Marcus Aurelius Anderson. What a great name. You can't have a cooler name than that. Um, that guy called me every single day, and he and I are good enough friends where, we could go a couple months without talking, but still pick up the phone and immediately right where we left off. That dude found a way to take time out of his crazy days to call me every single day just to check in. That's so important, man. You got to have people in your life like that. My family's FaceTiming me and stuff. It's beautiful, but having other people too, man. And also the other lesson too is learning how to accept help. People reached out, some of them total strangers, some of them are acquaintances, some of them are really close friends, and they'd always say same thing. Hey, what can I do to help? Is there anything you need? Just let me know. It's so easy to say, no, these calls are great. That's all I need. But actually, if my pride and ego got in the way, I was actually denying my wife and my son support. That would be selfish. They're home, on their own. My wife's homeschooling my son. It's the holidays. Actually, what was it? It was the holidays, but she's still like constantly around my kid. They're quarantining too. Luckily, they're not sick. So that was the other point, was learning how to accept help and how to ask for it. Again, it goes back to asking for what you need. And I said, yes, actually, I could really use some help. Like if you could send a meal to my family tonight, my wife wouldn't have to cook. I'd take something off her. I was like, man, that would mean a lot, you know. And so my son said, I want pizza. So, an amazing friend, a guy that actually, we'd connected with before, but, he said, absolutely, had pizza delivered to my family. It was so cool, And then it evolved from there. People kept reaching out, and I was like, man, like groceries would be even better. Like, because my wife could make groceries go a long ways, but she can't go out. So we just, instead, it was like small Amazon gift cards, because my wife could have groceries delivered from Amazon instead, not have to leave the house. And instead of paying for like $30 for a delivery and have one meal, now it's like, $30 in groceries can go a lot longer and it's healthier. So I had to learn how to receive and ask for what I needed when it came to help. It was a pretty big thing that I had experience with in the past. So again, I'm relying on my experiences, that have helped me along the way. It's so important, you know? You think
Yeah,
about all these things, and now where in your life you got to ask yourself again, like, where have you been offered help and support and chose not to accept it?
that's a huge one. I gotta even say, like, I've been guilty for that myself, because pride and ego gets in the way because you don't want to look bad in front of others. You
Yeah,
so used to being like an influence to so many different people, and
yeah,
now things are turning around where you need help, and
yeah,
your pride can actually be stepping forward back when you should be asking for help.
yeah. Am I being a victim? Am I showing weakness? Like, I can't do that. But at the same time, I'm asking you too, like, who are you denying the joy of serving you? I mean, that's the real thing. Who are you denying the joy of being generous?
Or that may be their breakthrough. So I'm glad you break that up.
Because it's true. There are people out there, and I ask other people, I'm like, but wait a minute, if somebody asks you for help, would you want to serve them? Absolutely. They're like, yeah, I'd give anything to anybody. Then I'm like, what makes you so special that you can't receive help? Like, what makes you so different? And they're like, no. There's always a story behind it, but you know, he, there's a generosity that people feel sometimes to serve other people. So don't deny somebody that joy of wanting to serve you and help. That's not right, you know? So that was a big thing. And so I'm grateful that my family's good. I had a down night on Christmas Eve. I was pretty, pissed off about being in the hospital and not seeing my family.
Yeah.
You know, I'm mad. Early in the year, I'm in quarantine and separated from my family when there was the mandatory quarantine. We got separated because they were on a trip back to our family in the Northeast, and I missed my son's birthday. And now I'm going to miss Christmas. And I'm like, man, this is
Big
stupid. This
moments.
is ridiculous. I had my moment where I was throwing a massive pity party. Like, I had my moment. I'm sitting by the window. It's dark outside. I'm like, this is stupid, man. This is bullshit. And I'm mad. And, we still had a plan to FaceTime in the morning for Christmas. But all of a sudden, my wife said she had something dropped off. And finally, the nurse brought it in. She rolled in like a rolling, traveling suitcase into the room. And I opened the thing. And it's filled with Christmas presents. Shit, I still feel like I've told this story several times and I still get emotional, but it's filled with
Yes.
like Christmas, like right on the top, there's this like Grinch, like Christmas stocking,
Because they show their
and
care.
yeah, and it's from my son. The nurse, like I picked it up and I held it and I hugged the thing, man. Like I just hugged it. And like I'm crying, like just sobbing. And the nurse is like, "Do you love the Grinch? Is that why?" I was like, "No, I don't care about the Grinch at all." It's like I know it's from my boy. I know he picked this thing, and there were several other presents in there. And my wife just thought about me. And the funny thing was, they all said "Happy Birthday" on the wrapping paper. So she's like, they ran out of Christmas paper, like, so it's Happy Birthday
Birthday.
paper. And I'm like, all right, Happy Birthday, Jesus. But like, it was hilarious. And but man, all of a sudden I just snapped out of it. I was like, holy cow, I have so much when there's so many people who have so little. Like in that moment in the hospital missing Christmas, I'm like, I got so much, and it connected me again with when I was, separated and watching my son through FaceTime have his birthday, and I'm missing it. And it just reminded me too about all the men and women that serve our country in the military who go through this every day, missing their family on special occasions and going without. And I'm just like, okay, like I can do this, you know. And I just sobbed. And that nurse was so kind. She didn't leave my side. She put her hand on my shoulder, and feeling human connection was really special, you know. She's dressed head to toe in, massive suit, and face shield, face mask. But again, just feeling that hand on my shoulder and like human touch, like you just don't feel that anymore, outside of your circle. And so it was special. And I went to bed very grateful. And I woke up that next morning, FaceTime with the family. I opened my gifts, you know. It was very, very special. And my son, he's totally unaffected, it seems like. He's playing his video games. He's like, all right, gotta go. He just, he's fine. He didn't know I had COVID. He just knew I was really sick. We didn't tell him COVID because he was worried about that stuff. So he knew what it was. We educated him, but we didn't tell him I had it. He just knew I was really sick. But that next morning is when I did my first post. I'm wearing the Christmas hat. I had tubes in my nose, I'm smiling, I've got a smirk on my face, and I'm just telling people like, hey, everyone's going through something right now. Christmas isn't the same for everybody. But when people realized what I had, all of a sudden they saw somebody that's been very positive on social media, very active, athletic, you know, and all of a sudden he's got tubes in his nose and he's in the hospital. Like, that shook people to the core, I noticed. And again, this isn't about me, and I don't want any damn sympathy, but there was important story for me to share was that, look, this could happen to anybody. And I did things right, and it still happened, and it shook a belief system of some of my more conservative followers who maybe doubted, the legitimacy of this thing. And it shook them up because they hadn't really seen anybody that they know with this thing, you know, and somebody that looked healthy. So, yeah, it messed some people up. And that's what I want to do in this world. I want to shake the core belief system of people, to show the human side of things. Get out of your politics, get out of your ego, get out of the denial, and like, look at something. I wanted to make it human. I'm a real person, and I got this thing. If you want to deny it, go ahead. If you want to ask the question, well, do you have pre-existing conditions? Like, instead of like when the hell did we start saying that? No one ever said that when you have a cold or when you have the flu. Did you have pre-existing conditions?
You ain't
We
never
just ask
lied.
if like, how you feeling? Like, you doing okay? Like, what can I do for you? No, people ask that question so they can stay right about their thought process and their beliefs. Because if I say yes, then like, you see, that's why. That's why. Okay, I can stay right. So whatever, but I still made it human. And I wanted to share the message about some of these universal things that I've talked about. So it was important, man. I didn't want to make it about me. I know it probably came across that way at times.
Oh, you did
Uh,
fantastic, man. I literally, I'm like, I'm just gonna let you go because the story itself is just a very huge impact to give not only hope, inspiration, but you had so many core values in there at the same time just by telling your story.
and it was important to share. Like I just started sharing, and I struggled with talking about it at first because I was like, man, it's gonna come across as me. It's gonna come across as looking for sympathy. And look, there were moments where I wanted it. Like, yeah, there were moments I was down. Like, I wasn't perfect through this whole thing. Look, let me make it very clear. I cried every day. Like, there was a moment every single day I broke down. And then here's the lesson behind that. You gotta feel your feelings, and I chose to do that on purpose. I didn't see crying as a weakness. I didn't care if the nurses saw it. Like, I needed to. Because what's the value of me bottling all that up? You know? Like, if I bottle up all those feelings, they're still there. I just shoved them down somewhere. I can't afford to have any of those negative feelings left inside this body, you know? And here's the point. Every day I'm taking that, the remdesivir is being pumped into my body, along with all the other stuff going on. I can't rely on that to be a magic drug or a magic pill to fix all my problems. I need to stack the deck and help that thing work. And that's me. Positive mindset, getting all the garbage out, and those are my feelings. I can't just, like, that thing's trying to kill that virus. Guess what? I'm trying to kill all that negativity and all that stuff inside me, that victim stuff, even the sadness that I'm feeling. I got to get that out. You have to do the work. So I did the work with my routines, with my mindset, with crying or feeling, even if it was anger and rage, whatever it was, I got to feel that stuff. And I can do that through journaling, through talking to somebody, or just crying. Like, whatever it is, you gotta feel your feelings. That goes for you in your life. It really does. Like, where in your life are you just bottling stuff up and putting your head down saying, I just gotta grind and hustle and work through this. I don't have time for that stuff. Look, I'm not telling you to create a whole day around it, but like, have your moment and then know when to snap out of it. Have your moment. Like, look, have you ever felt bad after a ugly cry? Because, like, I'll tell you what, usually at the end of one, you're like,
Ooh, that felt bad.
you're like taking all that oxygen in, though. You're like, it's the same feeling as laughing your ass off. Because after you're done laughing, you're like, like all that air, it's the same feeling. Why wouldn't you want to feel that release? Because then you're like, I'm ready to move on now. You know, get that stuff out. So, yeah, all these things, these routines, feeling your feelings, asking for what you need, getting by something with your values, some music, some nature, like stacking the deck, do your work. Don't just rely on a magic pill. Where else in your life are you trying to get a magic pill? Are you trying to just like, buy some fancy software for your business and expecting that to fix everything? Are you trying to take just diet pills to help you lose some weight, and get fit? You can't rely on magic pills. You can't. You got to do the work too. And then maybe some of that stuff is going to help you along the way, but you got to make the stuff work. You
And
know,
that's
no magic
crazy. And
pills.
I think the true magic is within yourself. So
Yeah, absolutely.
fantastic.
Absolutely, man. Because look,
And
you can own a gym membership, but it's not going to get you in shape unless you go. So,
that should be
you
like,
know,
that should be a mic drop right there.
this I heard the joke once before. Like, he's like, I'm so mad. I've had this gym membership for 3 months. It hasn't done anything. So I finally showed up at the gym and I said, hey, this thing's not working. It's like, yeah, you haven't been, so you got some skin in the game, man. You got to do the work. And so I really believed in that. And I'll tell you what, like I stacked the deck in every place I could. They said, I said, hey, you guys have a chaplain? I was like, I like to talk to them too. Like have them call me. I was on everything I could to stack that deck. And my number one driver was I got to get back to my little boy. You
That
know,
was your why.
I
So
got to get back to him. I got to get back to my wife. You know, I miss my family. They need me. I need them. Like, this is it. So those were my drivers, man. I know I wrote down like 20 different points at one point of the
you
things that
didn't
helped
need
me
to, man.
thrive. You know, I just wrote down all these things. It's like, man, I got to use this to help other people, and I will when the time's right. And I feel blessed for moments like this, where I could. But, eventually, man, things started getting better. There was a couple hills and valleys along the way. But eventually, I was able to get, after 7 days in critical care, I was finally allowed to move down to the regular COVID ward. Um, but I'm on a floor too where it's crazy. I'm like the only person that could walk and talk, you
because you
know.
were
But
determined. You refused to be
yeah,
just like the others, just being a victim. Your
well, no,
habits, your
the other people on the floor weren't being victims though. They were severe, like they were elderly, or they were in serious condition too.
oh,
And I was also, you know, but
well,
like
yeah. What I was
every
saying, like your mindset. That was like
oh
what
yeah,
I'm
I
getting to.
got you.
Yeah,
Yeah. But every day somebody was coding on that floor. The alarms would go off. Somebody was like flatlining, man. It was scary. Like you hear that sound. But I was this weird anomaly, and the reason, like sometimes a doctor would come by and look through the window and they're like, why is this guy here? He looks fine, you know. But all that was happening was as soon as I stand up, though, just everything went downhill. And I still moved around a little bit. The other value I have is things being organized. So like my room was set up like, it was like my house, like I had things dropped off and stuff like that. I'd get up and move things around. I like my physical environment is important to me, and I like things to be in a certain place. It's not OCD. I just have some standards. And so that was another value that I honored is like, all right, like I got to create this space as if it's like my own. It is right now. And so I had things put where I wanted them to be. And I was unapologetic about it. I got up and moved some things around. I got caught a few times when my alarms would go off because my oxygen was dropping. They're like, what are you doing? And they couldn't come right in real quick. They had to get all dressed up to come into my room. And I'm like, try and stop me. But I always listened to them. I love them to death. My nurses were awesome. And so, that's the other thing too. Again, a value is super important, but I'll tell you what though, gratitude is the other big thing. Showing gratitude for everything that you got in life, but also show gratitude to the people who are serving you. Those nurses, those doctors. I'll tell you what, I maybe met only 3 people out of all those hospitals, 4 hospitals, 2 urgent cares, that had not contracted COVID. Like maybe 3 or 4 people. Every single person was like, oh yeah, no, I already had that. One person like, I had that twice. I was like, holy smokes, man. Like, they all had it at one point. It's craziness. So it's just so many lessons that came out of this thing. But
I feel like your whole story is a
yeah,
life lesson because, like I say, all of your values, your disciplines, habits, physical environment, mental, your why, and much more. I mean, you all told it in this one interview. So,
yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
story to
just
bring
summing the
hope.
whole thing up, man. Like when I was finally moved down to the regular ward, I was there for like 3 more days. So it was 10 days total in the hospital, in that hospital. And when I was finally released, man, like I was getting more independent. They were like weaning me off the oxygen. That was the goal. As long as I could maintain a certain percentage of oxygen, They're weaning me out. And so I finally got to that level. I'm starting to feel pretty good and confident now. I'm moving around in my room. They encourage it. You know, one nurse caught me doing front raises with my oxygen tank. I'm lifting the thing up and down.
Really, bro?
Yeah, it's just like I got because man, I'll tell you what, COVID ravaged my body of like all of its muscle, like just everything just felt squishy. But I was like, all right, like give myself some grace here, be nice to yourself, but still it felt good. But man, when they let me leave and they wheeled me out there, and I saw my wife and my son, I'll tell you what, I cried the whole way home. I sobbed when I got in the house, and it was just the gratitude. I'll tell you what, my wife never looked so beautiful, and my son just never looked more precious. I just held them. I couldn't let go. Everything in life just looked so gorgeous. I hadn't seen the outside world, like been out in the outside world and smelled the fresh air, for 10 days. I didn't even know what the outside of my room looked like, like it was crazy, and so gratitude all the way around. And still the job wasn't done. I had to be sent home with oxygen, and then they installed like this continuous oxygen machine that I had in my hotel room. That's what it felt like, the COVID Inn and Suites.
So wait
In
a
the
minute, just
hospital.
said COVID in sweet.
Yeah, COVID Inn and Suites, baby.
Oh,
I got a platinum membership now, rewards program. But they had an oxygen machine installed, and I had to be on that thing all the time to manage it. And so it was about 34 days total, like just fist fight with this thing, And I got off the oxygen, I was done, and I just had to manage it from there. But gratitude all the way around, and so many lessons. So if I really had to sum it up for people, man, the power of your routines, all the work that I'd done in the past 2 years on creating a morning program and being disciplined and waking up early, and then, finding more things that I got hungry for. It was a progressive thing with my routines. Even when I started mornings, that was the only thing I wanted to do because I was not good at mornings. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I want to work out. I was like, man, I feel inspired to read more. Slowly over the course of like 30, 60, 90 days, I started getting hungry. I want to eat better, instead of trying to do it all at once. Nah, just progressive. And I was just like allowing yourself to get hungry for something else to build on top of it. I did the same thing in the hospital, and it started with a sunrise. It started with a sunrise and built up from there, from there, from there. So I'll tell you what, like right now, like focusing on those 5 things about my sleep, my nutrition, my fitness, my stillness time, and my connection with, the people I connect with in my life. Tell you what, right there again, man, if you're not making time for those things, because someone on social media said, that sounds nice, Matt. Those are all great things, but, having time for those things isn't realistic. And I can't remember the guy's name that I met once, but he said this to me once and it hit me. He's like, if you're not creating the time for those things in your life, you're creating time to get sick and you're creating time to burn out. I was like, all right, you can't bitch about your life and being sick, being tired, being burned out if you're not making time for your basic needs. That's it. It's plain and simple. So you got to fight for that time. You got to create it yourself. And sometimes that's like you got to wake up early. I don't want to wake up early. That's hard. And great, then it's going to be easy to get sick. So stop complaining. You're not going to change your life. You're not going to find that job that you've always wanted. You're not going to spend that extra time with your family that you always wanted. It's because you won't create the time for it. So that's the big thing right there. Control what you can control. So, and then honor your values. I think those are the 3 biggest things, man. Like, I really, really do believe in that. It's just you got to start with really strong routines and let them build up. Honor your values. Learn to ask for what you need. And protect the things that you can control. And don't forget to throw some gratitude on there too.
all solid points, great
That's it, man.
story.
That's
Habits,
how I can bring
much
it
more.
home. It has nothing to do with COVID. Seriously, I know I told a lot of COVID stories, but please don't focus on that. Focus on the things, and I'm telling you, these bullet points right here. Focus on that. Nothing to do with COVID. Get out of that political stuff and all that other garbage. Focus on the controllables, the things that shake your belief system. Just like if you have this belief system that this thing's not real, or this is created by this person, it's all political and all that stuff. No, like it's the same belief system as like I can't have time for that. I don't, I want to be a victim. It's the same thing. You got to do stuff that shakes your belief system and challenge it. Because if you want to keep doing things the same way, you're going to get the same damn results and you're going to keep complaining about the same stupid stuff. You got to have the courage to do it differently. And if you need help with that, that's what I do. And so that's why I want to serve and make a difference in this world. I'm
And
done.
right there, we dropped 2 mics, just busting it all up. So go ahead and tell the audience. I mean, I didn't even have to ask no question. You was just being yourself. But tell the
Oh,
audience
man.
where they can reach you out. Of course, I'm going to share this great story and much more on other platforms, on Apple, Spotify, and all that. But where can I reach you out?
Look, man, first process was I just wanted to serve by sharing this. But look, I also serve too in my career. I've made it my life purpose. You want to find me on LinkedIn. That's my primary, space where I hang out and post. But you can find me under there under Matt Gagnon, Gagnon. I know you'll post my name on it. You can't miss me. I got a ton of emojis and stuff in my headline. Um, but secondly, too, find me on Instagram. I am Matt Gagnon and also at atomicmornings.io. So if you want to find out, if you want to do some regular coaching with me, I work with a lot of executives, CEOs, all, high performing entrepreneurs. And I work with them one on one, helping them work through, values and limiting beliefs, but all with the mission of making you more productive, making you more efficient, making you the best at your home and at your work, and doing it in a way that aligns with your values. Because look, these high performers, I want them to be their best selves at home and at work so they can continue to do things that produce results that are game changers in this world. I really value that. And then the morning thing, man, again, I work with a lot of executives in that too and high performers with helping them get up in the morning and start creating routines and being them best selves. Because I'll leave you with this. I don't have a lot of respect for the executive that's like killing it at work, but is completely out of shape, never home with their family. I don't know what there is to respect about that. You know, it's just, you're just focusing on one thing, but you're killing your body. You know, what's the point if you die early and you can't keep your business running, you can't serve your family? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I want to help people have both. That's it.
Awesome, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and close this out. Make sure you share this, comment below, and much more. We always bring in great stories like this one so we can elevate people to the next level. And I'm going to end with this as like my new little tagline. Every day is great when you start your day with a smile. So,
I love it, man. Live with
so
that
peace.
courageous heart, buddy.
Gotcha, gotcha. Appreciate you being on, and peace out.